For as far as the eye can see, this land, once owned by Chile's native Mapuche people, is covered with pine and eucalyptus trees, planted by giant forestry companies. They are the main target of the Arauco-Malleco Coordinaer, or CAM, a Mapuche rebel group that's escalating attacks aimed at recovering ancestral land and gaining territorial control of the region. On Monday, they destroyed $2.5 million worth of forestry equipment. But the CAM is no longer the only armed group operating in this vast region. More radical groups have sprung up, launching attacks, taking over land, and killing civilians. Last week, a prominent Chilean journalist and his cameraman were ambushed and shot. They barely escaped alive, but the cameraman lost an eye. We traveled to the conflict zone to meet the CAM's elusive leader, HECTOR, the first foreign news organization to do so.
The fact that there are other groups is something new in the scenario of confrontation between our people and the state. We have nothing to do with the actions where lives were lost. We are not going to answer for other Mapuche groups, but we aren't going to condemn other expressions of the struggle either, because in the conflict, the majority of victims are Mapuche.
YASNA is a former member of a Marxist guerrilla group that fought against Chile's former military dictatorship and is labeled a terrorist by the authorities. The CAM has refused to negotiate demands for land and Mapuche autonomy until now. What conditions would you put in order to begin some kind of a dialogue with the Chilean state, with the Chilean government?
If the dialogue takes place locally, it won't offer many guarantees. That is why we have accepted, or at least are showing interest, in the proposal made by Senator Chumila that raises the possibility of guarantors, international observers, maybe from the UN or NGOs or international bodies that relate to indigenous or human rights groups.
The conflict is spreading further and further south from the Biobío River, and no one group is in control. We're looking for water, says Don Guillermo. This Mapuche family is digging a well on what they now claim as their land. In the last 2 months alone, there have been hundreds of land takeovers by Mapuche communities. Clashes with riot police who try to evict people like the GUAJARDO family end in violence. Yet they come back over and over.
This is an awakening of the Mapuche people, an uprising to recover from what the Chilean state took from us 150 years ago and gave to forestry companies and farm estates.
The Mapuches are the poorest sector of the population, and land, or the lack of it, has long been the key issue. Rather than advance in what is one of their main demands, the state agency that is in charge of buying land for Mapuche communities froze purchases last year. That has outraged Mapuches who have been waiting for years for promises of land to be fulfilled. And it has also not only spurred land grabs, but also Mapuche political violence, like what you see here. YASNA Navarrete shows us what's left of her family's business, which provides services to forestry companies.
Inside this harvester was a driver who was violently taken down and stripped of his means of employment. To drive on our roads is terrifying. I use a bulletproof helmet and vest. The state has lost all control. It's the Wild West here.
It's becoming an increasingly complex confrontation with an increasing number of actors on all sides of the conflict, making efforts for a political solution more urgent than ever before. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Collipulli, Chile.